Hello, this is Dave Lee Travis welcoming you to the final programme of the Top 10 Auto Show. Each week we give you the Men & Motors Top 10 countdown for a particular class of car, with the judging being carried out by the Top 10 Auto Show expert panel, which includes editors of the major motoring magazines. And this week we're going out with a bang as we give you the Top 10 tarmac thrashing, corner hugging performance cars of the year. So let's start the countdown at number 10. In at number 10 this year is the Honda Accord Type R. For all of you who thought that Hondas were purely the transport of old men to get them to and from the bowling green, well, think again, as the Accord Type R is every bit worthy of its place in this year's top 10. You only need to look at the performance stats to see that this is one Honda that means business. 0 to 60 in just over 7 seconds and onto a top whack of 140 miles an hour. However, it's not just speed that makes this car so great. It's the way in which its performance is genuinely usable. At any speed, the chassis is composed and responsive, yet without being annoyingly firm, and despite being front-wheel drive, there's an impressive amount of traction. The car is at its most exciting, though, when you bang your foot right down. The Accord's 2.2-litre revs ridiculously high. At over 6,000 revs, it really comes alive with an engine note that is motoring music. Let's now take a look at the manufacturer's facts and figures for the Honda Accord Type R. You may be surprised that it only made 10th slot, so let's see how our expert panel scored the Honda. In 10th place then, with an average percentage of 65, the Honda Accord Type R. Taking 9th slot this year is another car from Honda's performance stable. This time it's the Civic Type R. Whilst the Civic, like the Accord we've just seen, is a great all-round performer, its greatest feature is its engine. It uses the same variable valve timing technology as the rest of the VTEC range of engines, yet, if anything, it's much easier to reap the performance on the Civic as the power kicks in much lower down in the rev range. Although Ford, Alfa and VW have recently introduced models that seriously challenge the Civic's crown as one of the best hot hatches of all time, you'd be hard-pressed to fault the drive of the Type R. Although there are no electronic driver aids fitted to the car, it's still a remarkably easy and rewarding car to drive, and it won't throw you into a hedge at the first sign of trouble. On the equipment front, the Civic isn't as packed with goodies as many of its rivals, but it is built with impeccable precision, and in the long run, it'll probably hold its value better than many of the competition's cars. Here are those all-important facts and figures for the Civic Type R. And from manufacturer's figures to those of our expert panel, as we see how they've marked the Honda in the top 10 categories. With an average score of 67%, the Honda Civic Type R takes this year's 9th position. In at this year's 8th place is a Mondeo. Yes, that's right, the rep's favourite makes it into the top 10 performance cars. But this is certainly a Mondeo with a bit of a difference. It's the ST220. Take one superbly built and fine-handling Mondeo saloon, add a menacing body kit and huge 18-inch wheels, and then give it life with 217 brake horsepower, a 3-litre V6, and you have the high-performance ST220. For what's quite a large car, out on the road the ST220 is remarkably nimble and chuckable as it remains well behaved on all but the roughest of road surfaces. However, like all of the cars we've seen so far this week, the Mondeo is front-wheel drive, hence the standard fitment of traction control to keep everything on the straight and narrow. For what is a great car inside and out and on the road, the Mondeo's biggest drawback is its running costs. That engine is very thirsty and will cost you a packet at the pumps. Also, when you come to sell your ST220 in a few years' time, be prepared for a big loss, as this type of vehicle typically depreciates very heavily, especially when you compare it to similar performing Mercs and BMWs. But let's forget boring things like running costs as we take a look at the performance figures for the ST220. We know it's in 8th place, but here's how our expert panel have marked the Mondeo ST220. With an average percentage of 68, the Mondeo ST220 takes this year's 8th place. Straight in at this year's number 7 is one of the newest cars on the block, the Mini Cooper S. Although strictly speaking, the new Mini isn't very new anymore, it still creates excitement and turns heads when out on the road, and the Cooper S is certainly the most exciting car of the bunch. It uses the same 1.6-litre engine as the other two Mini variants, only with the addition of a supercharger. This means that 60 comes up in under 8 seconds, and roads permitting, it will go on to 126 miles an hour. But though the Mini will happily cruise along the motorway, its forte is using its go-kart-like handling on twisty country roads and negotiating around city traffic. It really is a joy to drive, and after just a few minutes you realise that BMW have done a fantastic job in recreating the exhilarating handling of the old Mini with, of course, incorporation of all the developments that modern motoring demands. Traction control and ABS are standard, as is speed-sensitive power steering. Let's check out those statistics then for the Cooper S. We know it's in at number 7, but let's see how our expert panel scored the car in the 5 top 10 auto show categories. With an average percentage of 69, the Mini Cooper S. Just failing to make the top 5 in this year's chart is the Ford Focus ST170. Yes, there are cars in this top 10 that are quicker to 60 and have a higher top speed, but for a front-wheel drive performance car, the ST170 is a pretty impressive piece of kit. We all know that the basic Focus is a highly acclaimed car for its ride and handling, and the ST170 adds to this package by providing a few tweaks here and there, and of course, a 170 brake horsepower 2-litre engine. It's no fire breather, but it does give the Focus a new lease of life, and it encourages you to drive the Focus harder, which is, after all, why you would buy this specification of car. Although the engine needs lots of revs to get the best performance, the rest of the car is very refined, and even at high speed there is little in the way of road and wind noise, just the reassuring thrum of that 2-litre engine. As you'd expect with such a performance variant, the Focus ST170 comes with ABS and traction control as standard, as well as a full set of airbags. In fact, the ST is the only Focus in the range to get side airbags as standard equipment, suggesting then that with the extra power, you're more likely to stuff your car into a hedge. Here then are those facts and figures for the Focus ST170. And to see why the car didn't make the top 5, here are the panel's marks for the sporty Ford. With an average percentage of 70 then, the Focus ST170 takes 6th place. We're into the top 5 now, and if you thought the Cooper S would be the smallest performance car in our top 10, VW are here to prove you wrong with their Lupo GTI. Now, the first thing you'll notice about the Lupo when you look at it up close is how solid it feels. You may think that being the runt of the VW range, the quality and finish wouldn't be up to scratch, but it's every bit as well put together as a Golf or Passat. Even when you close one of the Lupo's tiny doors, there's a reassuring clunk of quality. The interior too feels like it would last longer than most lumps of granite, though some may say it's too somber for a car wearing the GTI badge. The chassis is brilliantly set up and the steering is such that you really feel involved in the drive, and even at more moderate speeds you can have fun in the Lupo. You just can't have fun in it parked in a lay-by with your girlfriend. It's too small for even that. Here then are the stats and figures for VW's Pocket Rocket. We know it made the top 5, but here's how our panel scored the car in the 5 categories. With an average percentage of 71, the Lupo is this year's 5th place car. Well, that's it for part 1 of this year's top 10 performance cars. Join me after the break when we'll be revealing the top 4 tarmac-tearing motors. Hello and welcome back to the Top 10 Auto Show, where this week we're running down the top 10 performance cars of the year. We're into the top 4 now, so get set for a hike in the horsepower figures. In at number 4 is the biggest car in our top 10, and that's big in size, big in price, and big in the horsepower department, as the huge £52,000 BMW M5 packs a whopping 400 horsepower from its 5-litre V8. Now, I know what you're thinking. Surely such a big car with so much power can only show its strength hurtling down the autobahn with 5 executives on board. Well, whilst the M5 will do this without so much as a blip of the throttle, you'll be staggered by how much this car enjoys being driven hard on twisty, undulating country roads. It's awesome! And the more you drive the M5, the smaller it seems to get, and the more your confidence in the car will grow. The suspension setup is near perfect, as it is with most of today's BMWs, so the car never wallows or loses its composure even when being pushed hard on the toughest of road surfaces. But, as you'd expect, there are numerous electronic safety devices to step in and help you keep control if you do get a little overzealous with the loud pedal, which, believe me, is loud. So let's take a look at the specifications for the BMW M5. We know it's in 4th spot, but here's how the Men & Motors panel have marked the Beamer. In 4th place then, with an average percentage of 75, the BMW M5. We're into the top 3 now, and in 3rd place it's yet another BMW, this time the M5's smaller brother, the M3. Now, performance-wise, both cars are similar, though the smaller 3 Series gets you to 60 a shade quicker than the M5. But though the M5 is a very nimble car, the M3 takes this a stage further. Slip inside those figure-hugging leather sports seats, take in the quality and refinement of the cabin, fire up the 350 horsepower straight 6, and straight away you feel part of the car. Plant your right foot down hard and the M3 will leap away with alarming speed. Assuming, of course, you have the traction control on. Switch it off and repeat the process and you'll be spitting gravel for half a mile. But whatever the speed and whatever the revs, the M3 wants to go and go and go. Yet despite its speed and power, the M3 always feels drivable with fabulous feedback through the chassis and the steering wheel without ever becoming too jarring. For a car with such quality and performance, the 40 grand price tag doesn't seem too outrageous, especially when there are cars out there with lesser performance for double the cost. Here's those all-important stats for the M3. We know it's in the top 3, but here's how our expert panel have scored the car. With an average percentage then of 76, the BMW M3 is this year's 3rd place. So what's in it too? It's this, the legendary Subaru Impreza. Now, ever since the original Impreza hit the UK in the early 90s, it's wowed driving enthusiasts with its awesome four-wheel drive cornering ability and monstrous acceleration. And it's certainly one of those cars that if you do get the chance to drive one, jump at it. It's also very practical, seating 4 adults with ease and having a great boot space. Now, at first you may be put off by the Impreza's quirky looks and fairly uninspiring cabin, but don't let it fool you, as once out on the road, you'll be amazed how quickly this car can be driven. This is the first car in our top 10 to use a turbocharger, and boy do you feel it. When you hit the accelerator pedal, there's a slight delay while the turbo spins up to speed, and then all hell lets loose as the car surges forward, and you soon realise why the car has rally-style seats fitted as standard. Now, unlike the 2 Beamers we've just seen, the Impreza isn't finished off with the best in engineering precision. It doesn't feel as solid as a block of stone, and around town the ride isn't as comfortable, but hang on. It cost just over 21 grand for the WRX model, making the M3 almost twice as expensive. In anyone's book, that makes the Impreza Turbo a supercar bargain. It missed out on the first place by just 2% in the end. Here's how our panel marked the Impreza. So if the Impreza didn't win, what did? We'll find out shortly, but first, here's a recap of the 9 cars from 10 to 2. In at 10 this year is the Honda Accord Type R. At number 9, another Honda R-Type, the Civic. Taking 8th place is the Mondeo ST220. This year's 7th spot goes to the Mini Cooper S. In 6th place is the Ford Focus ST170. On to the top 5, and in 5th is the VW Lupo GTI. At number 4 is the BMW M5. Making it to number 3 this year is the BMW M3. And in 2nd place is the Subaru Impreza Turbo. Which means that this year's top 10 performance car is the awesome Mitsubishi EVO 7. Now, if you're a really big rally fan and you always wanted a rally car of your own, the Mitsubishi EVO 7 is about as close as you can get without shelling out £500,000 for an original WRC car. You only need to look at the EVO with its huge spoilers and splitters, big bore exhaust and menacing bonnet vents to know that this is a serious piece of performance kit. Under that vented bonnet, like the Subaru, there's a 2-litre turbocharged engine, only this time it produces a huge 280 horsepower. Now, that amount of power in a car that weighs the same as a Mondeo is going to result in staggering performance. And from the off, the EVO is a staggering car to drive. Like the Subaru, it's willing to leap forward in any gear, yet, if possible, it's even more aggressive than the Impreza. It also allows you to attack corners at speeds you wouldn't dare try in any other car, even the Subaru. And with the help of its active yaw control and switchable differential settings, this really is a rally computer game brought to life. On the inside of the EVO, whilst everything is well put together, you can see that interior styling isn't the main criteria with this car. Functional is the word, and it is an improvement on the last model EVO, but aside from those rally seats, alloy pedals and mono steering wheel, don't expect too many whistles and bells, as this car lets its performance do the talking and not the list of standard equipment. So, whilst I go and convince the missus that it really should be our next family car, here are the stats for the EVO. We know it's the winning car, but what aspects of it did our panel particularly like? Here's how they scored the car.
Hi, this is Gary Shoefield and I am the Director of Program at Grana Men Motors, and I'm here with Iguchi on the Mitsubishi stand, and Mitsubishi have won in our top 10 awards the top performance car, which is this wonderful EVO 7. This is for you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for this award, and on behalf of Mitsubishi Motors UK, we are very much pleased to get this award. And I think that this is a recognition that our effort for many years to introduce this nice top performance car in UK, and people like this car very much. Thank you very much.
It's congratulations then to Mitsubishi for their EVO 7 taking first place in this year's top 10 performance cars. I'm Dave Lee Travis. Thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this series of the Top 10 Auto Show, and I'm sure I'll see you again soon on Men and Motors. Until then, safe driving and goodbye.